All right. So we're going to start the meeting as just a basic discussion about the budget and exactly where we're at, which the town council will be going over with their public hearing, which will be next week on December 17th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m.
Not recording right now.
It's not
Yeah.
It is now. All right. So we're coming in play with our Finance Committee meeting that was scheduled for Thursday, December 12th, 2019. We're going to be going over the budget with the Finance Committee. We have two councilors present and a council-elect present, as well as the town manager. And so we have we've tracked exactly the different items that were additions and subtractions to the original budget from the discussions at the Tuesday, December 3rd, 2019 meeting. So we started out with our budget books, and we had a budget of $3,875,106. That was operations. The bottom line of the capital budget was $138,000, and those two together were a 10.1% increase over the 2019 budget. So we've had a lot of additions and subtractions since then, and these are the ones that ended up staying. We had more than this, but these are the ones that were decided upon at the last council meeting on December 3rd. So we are in discussions with the police chief and overlap on the video system and the grant that was gotten and everything. The police chief said we could take $3,000 out of the capital budget allocation. And it started out, he indicated we'll just take it out of the 2019, but if we do that, we've got to go through reallocations and the capital reserve and everything. So it's the same. If the 2019 monies are used of the 2020, you have the same effect. So it's easier to just reduce the budget line that has not been approved yet. So we will reduce the capital line for police video system by $3,000. All right, and that would reduce the capital budget. And then there was a question about the new additional service for the new training, as well as rewriting all of the policies so they match up with current laws and everything. And so there was already training in the police budget, and then there was training in the additional request. And so $675 by the police chief's calculations could be reduced from the police budget for that duplication of training if the DRGO was approved. The next item is the Public Works motor vehicle maintenance. And that budget had been cut by the Public Works foreman when he submitted his budget, and he had submitted a budget for that line of $12,500. When we were at the budget meeting discussing that, and it didn't seem like it would really work. If he got the new vehicle, that would help out a lot, but it still would be very tight if one of the other vehicles started breaking down. So maybe at the time he was putting the budget together, which was in the middle of the night, he was thinking about the new vehicle and how he wouldn't have all those breakdowns if he got it. But it still would be, you know, a tight budget. So it was discussed adding $10,500 to the Public Works motor vehicle maintenance line. So the next one is librarian pay carried forward. And we carried forward all of the budget lines and kept them the same with no increases, pay increases in the actual budget, so that we could put all the pay increases in one line, at least for initial discussions and because of police negotiations and everything. And so when that was carried forward, thank you. So when that was carried forward, there was one budget in which an employee had retired and was at a higher pay rate than the employee who came in. He still got a large increase. So we were able to reduce the librarian's pay, and that had been pointed out by the new librarian. So that was a reduction of $5,740. Then we come upon the theater, in which the theater budget at certain preliminary votes was not funded. And the theater budget was reduced from the budget that was approved for the 2019 budget, but still was to be budgeted and allocated of tax dollars. And so the council decided to reduce that to 0. So then the health rate increase for the insurances for all the employees across the budget came in less. We were told to budget for 8%, came in at 3%, so that was absolutely wonderful. So that would be a reduction of $17,052. We then come upon all the additionals, and there were many, many additionals. I mean, millions of dollars of requests, and there was no way you could approve them all. And so the finance committee and the town councilors all went through these several times. Finance committee went through them more. So the code enforcement for legal costs, which would be put into the code enforcement budget just for dealing with these code enforcement issues, was requested at a lot higher amount, $90,000. And so there's no way you could have all that in the budget in 1 year or even 2 or 3 years. So that was reduced to $30,000 and then reduced again by the council to $10,000. The next item is the Dirigo Safety Power. It's got a long name, but basically it is the training programs for the police, for police officers, not just for everyone, but specifically for police officers. And then there's a program to rewrite your policies. That cost per year for a 3-year period is $4,380. We come upon next the additional full-time public works mechanic. It's pretty clear public works is way behind, and the workload is substantial, and there's so many requests from people and things to do. And so looking forward to the future, many of the employees will be retiring because they all pretty much started at the same time, stayed with the town for a long period of time. So in looking at the staffing, the Public Works foreman proposed a mechanic so that his current mechanic could train the person, the current mechanic could go out and do other items. And so a new person would become a mechanic. So the cost for that, figuring in all of the benefit costs, all of the actual costs and the pay, $60,992. We then come upon an item that wasn't discussed by anyone, which I put in because for public works engineering, because we have no engineering monies. And in looking at all these places to do projects, we can figure out in the country how to do the grades and get the water off the road and all of that. And you can do that and have it work out fine. But once you get into the urban area of the town, you cannot. There are water lines, sewer lines, stormwater drains, and today we found even another type of line. So these things are very bumpy. There are cables running under some of the roads, and everything is tight, the sidewalks are there, so we need help to manage this and put together plans. Either you would design 2 to 3 projects, or you could go through, as we did when I came in 2002, we went through all the roads and picked out the ones to do estimates on what their costs would be to improve them and what those improvements should be. And so we had 4 engineering letters and Excel charts, and we used those to plan out work to the roads. The major large ones never got done because people didn't want to bond for them, which I understand. So you could use that either way, but I think that's important because it's hard if we're going to go into the urban area with all these lines and everything, you know, it's going to be hard to design the project as we go along ourselves. We're going to need help, and it's going to take a long period of time. Then we're going to get into the next year and everything. So we put in $15,000 for that. Then we come upon the theater budget, fixed costs only. And so thinking about the theater building, if it's not going to have a budget, you can't just leave it there and do nothing. The fixed costs were calculated to be $12,295. So that was added back into the budget. In the discussions at the council meeting, some of the councilors were interested. I understand why. We used to have a paving reserve, and so they added in $20,000 for that. We stopped having the paving reserves once the paving costs went up so much because it's a drop in the bucket and you ended up having to bond. But this is something that was of interest to councilors, and understandably so. You should have a paving reserve. It's just hard for towns to do it that way now. When the councilors looked at the projects that were proposed for the capital plan, one item was a new public works truck. And so that would be a large truck for snow plowing, sanding, and everything else, the summer work. And so the cost of that was substantial, and it was in the actual capital budget for a cost of $180,000. It's a 1989 Ford dump truck, which would be replaced, and it's having a lot of problems now, which is costing motor vehicle maintenance. So council has talked about those that have businesses that they depreciate their trucks over 5 years. The town doesn't do that because we use them longer and we're not a business and don't have to depreciate that way. But if we depreciate it over the 5-year period, using the current Maine Municipal Bond Bank amortization chart, the payment on that vehicle will be $38,314 each year for 5 years at the current estimated amounts in the chart that they have. And you could do other financing. You could make it 7 years. We could put it out ourselves and maybe get a better rate. We could go to the companies, might be able to get a better rate, but you got to pay for it someplace. So either you pay for it from tax dollars or you pay for it from the Pittsfield Future Fund.
Catherine, we don't have the option of doing a lease purchase like on the fire truck, or
We could do a lease purchase, yes.
is that more economical because the payments are less? Or, I mean, what happens at the end of the lease?
At the end, you would buy it for $1, and nobody ever trades $1. It just gets turned over to the town. They give us the back of the title is signed over by
So
them.
if we did a 7-year purchase lease, you're still making payments,
Yes.
you just don't have the debt loan, the loan of the debt that goes along with it.
Correct, it would be less.
And it's pretty comparable as far as the amount.
Yes, and we would definitely have it for 7 years. We have it for a long
Right,
period of
yeah.
time.
That seems like it would be a better,
Yeah, I think that's an
Strategy.
area where we can save some money.
Yeah.
At least each year, it'll cost more over the long term because you've got more interest, but we have to look at something. And then we had the consulting staffing study to look at all of the departments if we could, if not, then several departments. So we added $60,839 to the budget and ended up with an increase of $428,994 or 11.8%. So when we looked at the capital budget, you already have the figure up above. We only took $3,000 out of there. You might be able to take more. And on the back of the double-sided page is the capital budget, which started out at the capital budget that was going to be funded by the loan. Started out at $1.36 million. And then the revisions that were made by the council was to replace the 1989 Ford dump truck that was taken out. Overlay paving, that was cut in half because it was in there for $500,000, and obviously we couldn't do that. $250,000 was what we did for, at least put in for overlay paving, and the same for the base paving, that was cut in half. And then the MSW compactor will be funded by the recycling reserve. So that brought us down to $650,000, and we had $706,000 last year. So Steve and I had talked about how much it was going to cost for all these items, and he didn't really want to put in for the bridge work, but we need to address, and this is an area where we could even this out by taking care of the Crawford Road needs to work on the abutments, which was to be done, and it does. It's getting worse. That one needs to be done, and now we've been notified by the state that the other Sebasticook Road culvert needs to be fixed. We finished one, and so then now they're saying the next one needs to be done, which we thought would happen.
so that would be 2021 that we'll do that, or
Pardon?
would that be 2021 to do that?
I think that we're gonna have to look at Crawford Road first.
Right, for the culvert, the Sebastian culvert.
Yeah, and then the culvert in 2021, yes, yes.
Was that, would that be done by our public works, or we bid it out?
Yeah, I think it would be bid out. There's very few companies that do the work. We would line it, as we did before with the Knowles Industrial Company. They did a really good job,
Yeah.
but it's very expensive. But if you took the culvert out, it would be a living nightmare, and there's no reason to take it out. We were able to leave the big culvert in, the one that was in bad condition, and this one's going downhill too, which you would think, because they were put in about the same period of time. So that could be done in 2021, but we really do need to look at the Crawford Road bridge first, and then if monies are left over, we could go fix some culverts.
Do we have any engineering done on the bridge, on the Crawford Road Bridge?
Pardon?
Do we have any engineering already done for the Crawford Road Bridge? I know we've talked about it.
There's a letter, we have a bid package for it, because it was put out to bid, but we just couldn't afford the work, and that was the year that all those bridge projects were being done by the state.
Right.
So there were very few contractors and their prices were very high, whereas now all that bridge work is done, so we should get good pricing.
Okay.
So this is where we're at. And then we got another handout that the theater committee asked me to put together at their meeting on 12/4, the impact of the mill rate regarding the theater. And so using the current 2019 valuation tax mill rate as an estimate only, if we added that 96,175 to the budget, it adds 0.37 of a mill. So if you were at $20, it would become $20, 20.37 is the mill rate. So those are the fixed costs of the building added to the budget. If it's $12,295 for the fixed cost, that adds 0.05 of a mill. So the tiny little amount, it doesn't really add anything. So when the council put $12,295 in for fixed costs, it really doesn't impact anything. It's so tiny. So they were interested in all kinds of statistics, and they had some other things too. These are the typical ones that you would look at. So our census figure is 4,215 people. So the cost of the theater, if we put the budget in at 96,175 for 2020, would be $22.82 per person. It's fairer to do it by the household, because you can have 10 people in a house or one person in a house, and if you use the household units, then it's considered a fairer item. So that means that it would cost $54.65 for the year in 2020 per household. And then they wanted it divided by the tax bills, and I explained this is not a good way to do this, and people will do it, but some people have 10 tax bills, if they have a subdivision, or some people have 2 tax bills, or some people don't have any. So by dividing by the tax bills, it's $42.31 by the number of bills. And then you can see, I'm not going to read off the fixed cost, but it's very tiny, $2.92 per person. It really doesn't have much of an impact. Household is $6.99.
If you're going just by housing units, that really doesn't make any sense either, because if somebody owns vacant land,
I know,
then it's,
but this is a typical one that people will utilize.
like if you're looking at this is the impact on your family, but if you have vacant land in town in addition to a home, then you need to double that if you're doing it through, well, it wouldn't even be counting that if you're just doing it. Neither one of these really make any sense to look at.
Yeah, there's no perfect figure to go by.
Well, mill rate, because that's straight across the board, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It just goes by the dollar value of the property.
So I didn't see that information in their letter, so I did make copies of the letter that we gave out to the public, to our new-to-be counselor, and to the counselors. And so we got a nice letter from the theater committee, just talking about all the things they've done and interactions with different entities and everything, and collaboration. And over the years, the theater has always had collaboration with different groups or different entities, had the schools and music performances, but it's more, I would say, more directed now. And then the theater committee had some questions on if the building was closed down, what would happen, etc. And so I can answer some of those.
Do you wanna go ahead and go through them and we can,
Pardon?
do you wanna go through them and we can discuss them, or do you wanna
I
wait
don't
and
know,
address
it's
it
something we
with
just
council,
would
or?
just be ready for council, I
Okay.
think, yeah.
I mean, some of them are just like, building's condition, we're gonna still be heating it so
Of
that it
course.
doesn't, you know.
Yeah, and this is a letter from the theater committee, it's not a letter from the theater manager. So I know the town council, and some councilors many times have asked the theater committee for their plan for the future, and as you can tell through the year, that's very difficult to do. And so we really don't have a plan, except that they are they're more organized now, which is very good, and working hard on different projects. And different events and activities have always taken place, but they haven't been organized, so they take place in a regular fashion, which now they're doing, so they can generate more money.
Catherine, what was the general payroll increase this year that you anticipate?
Okay, general payroll increase.
Because you had that.
Okay, yes, let me go to that. All right, so because we didn't know what we were gonna do, and we had negotiations, and people always negotiate to the prices, and the original plan was to do a pay plan, but so many other projects came upon us, and the pay plan that is in the Maine Municipal Association didn't even seem to make sense. You'd have one here. The towns are just not pleased with this platform we have to enter things in, so they're not entering it in, so we don't have a good base to go look at. So, we would have to conduct our own study and get all the job descriptions and everything, which is sad because MMA used to have a great salary survey book that everybody used. But, we're all going to the computer and digitization and everything, and so that was the platform. So under the unclassified, I placed an amount that would cover multiple items, and that amount was all right, very good. In 2020, all department pay increases and police union, $89,000. And that is the highest it could be. So we went through with all the payroll and put in two different types of plans. The first one, there's been complaints, and Deborah brought this up, and I understand why she's saying this. We would give the employees, maybe a 2% increase. So for some people, that's 20 cents, 35 cents, which really, if the insurance costs for the additionals that they added to their insurance beyond single subscriber went up, sometimes they would get less in their check. So I understand why I was told we needed to put more in than that, and understandably, because of the cost of everything. So we put together a plan that would either do a 1%, 2%, or 3% increase. And so that 3% is covered by the $89,000, and that covers also changes in the police union and additional positions and all of that. And then
Say that again, the 89,000 would be a 3%?
that will cover a 3% plus have there's an additional amount in there in case we need it for the police negotiations. So it would cover that. It's not huge, but it's a figure I'd rather not say. I can tell you after the meeting.
No, that's fine.
What's with the police contract, when you negotiated it last time, it was a 3-year contract, correct? What was the increase last time?
They had 2% and 3% increases.
Each year?
There was 2 years that they proposed at 0% themselves, which was shocking. And it might have been the first year of that contract they did that. But they then had 2% and 3%. And sometimes it wasn't set, And so we would ask you just, like, it used to be very informal. We would ask, look, we want you to be the same as the other employees, we're gonna do 3%. How's that? And they say yes. And then we just put it in, and then we finish the negotiations.
Okay.
Um,
May not be this year.
Yes, may not be
Okay.
this year, yes. So, they would usually have 2 and 3% increases.
Okay.
So we also put together a plan, if we looked at all the positions, and to meet what Deborah had indicated and what some of the employees had stated, and I understand that. And a $1 increase, a $2 increase, a $3 increase. We couldn't match the 4 and 5, people mentioned that, and I thought that was ridiculous, so. And I'm saying that on tape here. We did put that together, but that's not covered in the $89,000. So it covers a $3 increase in everyone. And then I put together what I thought was a reasonable plan here to meet many items. If you are a department head and you have employees, we put in a $2 increase. If you are a department head without employees, which are some of the part-timers and some of the full-timers too, and you are not a department head but not a line person, I put $1.50 in. And then if you were a line person, I put $1 in. And the $89,000 covers that, plus leaves an amount to deal with the police negotiations.
Okay.
What was it without employee?
Without employees was 150?
Yeah, so basically, you weren't saying everybody got the same amount because line people don't supervise. And then you have some of the people in between who sort of supervise but sort of don't. They don't have employees, but they run around and do all the extra things. So I put them at $1.50, and then the supervisors got $2 because it can be a headache here. And you have all the additional responsibilities, and generally, even though they're hourly people, they get called at night, and they have a lot of responsibilities. So this was supposed to help straighten out how our pay is lower than other places, to keep the people and retain them, and able to attract people if people leave and there's a lot of retirements coming up. And to meet the need that Deborah mentioned, that the pay really wasn't a lot for long-termers, and to meet the employees that were lower on the pay rates when they got a 2% increase. That sounds good, but it was only a few cents.
So they're either getting a 2% or, $1.50, is that what it comes down to? Is that what you're saying?
Or we could do some other combination. Yeah.
No, that's reasonable.
Yeah. You have to figure, we got to retain them. I mean, places are offering bonuses and all kinds of things, for some of the positions. Now, some are easy to fill. And right now seems to be a time that people are moving around, which, other times we've advertised, it's been nothing. So you never know. So I can cover mostly everything, and I've got additional to deal with the police union. And I'm going to go through, I had planned to go through the charts because you know how Excel can be and make sure everything's correct. I did this originally, but Emily went back and made some changes, and so I'm going to go back and check everything. And then look and see if there's some way that we can cut some items, but I just think that the people need to be paid better. And
Correct. What's, we've mentioned it a couple of times that there are possibly some people reaching retirement or, leaving. And that kind of creates an unfunded liability with respect to their, either their comp time or whatever. How, if people left, do you have any idea how much that is, with respect to, what we could be on the hook for if people leave?
all right. As of December 31st, 2018, if every single person left, which isn't going to happen, you would have an unfunded liability of 129,000 for all the departments, except for water sewer, which is approximately 20,000.
Okay.
So that, I believe, is less now, and we're gonna run Emily has it on the list to run the report out. She ran it out for me before, and it was a lot lower. This is pretty much like it was when I arrived. There are some years it got higher. And it's an unfortunate thing that government runs like this, the state runs like this, towns run like this. Very few towns will budget for this, but some of the southern Maine towns have to get rid of it.
I wonder if we should have, I mean, if we can do an estimate of how many employees we're gonna lose over the next 5 years, if we should have a little reserve item for employee retirement that needs to be paid out, much like the paving, because we don't want to pop up with $130,000 worth of paving that needs to be done in an emergency, and we don't want to pop up with like 4 employees that have been here a long time and have a lot of accumulated pay that need to be paid all in 1 year either. So one's just as bad as the other.
I know, yeah, that's a good idea. So what has normally happened, all the years I've been here in all the other towns, it's always been unfunded. So the only time we ran into a problem is when one individual left, and he had a lot of time because he had been here for decades. And we utilized a lot of his time while we were searching for his replacement by having him work part-time or take time off and just come in and check on things, which actually that year worked really good, and he was very good about it, but it still whacked the budget. But other things did too, and every year that budget is whacked, so it's always had a problem. And so that year it had a problem too. So normally it gets absorbed and then we do the transfers if we have to. I haven't had to transfer any, only for we're talking about public works. So, Mr. Logic knew that. So I've never had to transfer to cover that because it's always been able to be absorbed in the budgets. It's usually not that large, but public works was a large one.
Do you have an idea in general, like if our 2 longest serving employees retired in 2020, how much that would be?
I have that upstairs and we can update that. That's what Emily's gonna run.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like a general number, like $5,000 each, or I don't know.
No, we've got one that's got a lot of accumulated time.
Yeah.
I know that the tax rate is dependent also on theoretically the SAD budget.
Yes.
And the county budget. And the possible 1.44 mil increase is basically our municipal part. Could you, for comparison and for, well, you know, people looking at what the increase is going to be, give maybe a graph or a chart of the mill rate over the past maybe 5 years, and what contribution has been, the increase has been municipal versus SAD, you know, budget and county budget. You know, so when people are saying, you know, well, we didn't increase the municipal budget in the past years, but we did have a tax rate increase, you know, it was due to the education.
Do you want it calculated so that each year we have the percentage or the amount of the mill rate that belongs to the school, the town, and the county? Or do you want to look at just the increases?
I think everybody's gonna focus on the increases over
Yeah.
the actual mill rate amount.
Yeah.
And even if we assume that the county and the school are not going to be any less expensive this coming year, as far as if we expected them to have the same percent increase,
Mhm.
you know, what would our mill rate actually be?
Mhm.
If they have their additional increases that they had last year again.
The one item I'm not sure of, and won't be for some time, we're gonna have to assume we're able to certify 100%. We're starting to slide down, so that if we get to 90%, we can't certify 100%, which means that the mill rate, as you see it, isn't the correct mill rate. You have to adjust for it, like.
Is that the valuation, like properties
Yes,
being valued
yes.
at 100%?
Yes.
So wouldn't that be a function of our assessor making sure that properties are valued?
Yes, but
appropriately?
that also would be a huge task to go through. The firm we have now is not used to the factoring that we've done. They mostly go out and do like mini reevaluations, but we're not funded for anything like that. The other assessors have done the factoring, and I've had the factoring in other towns, so I'm talking with them now about factoring and everything. We can factor that fairly, and it's worked and stood up here from all the reviews, because when you factor, the state auditor who comes down does a much more thorough, another review to make sure we're correct on the studies and everything. So when you're able to factor these, you can fix the rate without going out to everybody's house, and that which takes a long time. So that's something that we're talking about now. Always lots of things to talk about and work on. So the only item, and I think we'll be fine and can certify 100%, but if we didn't, that means the mill rate looks higher than it really is. But we'll assume that's not going to be the case. So if you'd like, I can try to pare off some of this $89,000. It's probably the only place so far. I have, once I reconcile the budget and go through all the postings and everything, I'm gonna go through each of the accounts. I've asked some departments, and so far nobody has come up with, monies that they don't need in their budgets. Opportunity is to go through the budgets and carry forward some funds that have not been expended. There's a couple of departments, and then carry that forward and then cut their budgets for 2020 for the same thing. That's an opportunity, and a fair one to do.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, if they have it in their budget and they didn't need it this year, then we'll just, you keep it in their bank and they use it next year.
Yeah, it has to be for a project that they did not complete or did not do. And then we say we do it next year, and because it's in there next year already, so as the second year, and cut that out, and that would reduce a little bit of this mill rate increase. So I'm talking with those.
That is.
Pardon, I'm talking with those
which
departments. I have my idea of what it is, and departments have their idea of what it is. So we'll see what they propose in writing.
Are the department heads coming to the meeting on Tuesday?
Yes. Everybody that has a large budget or an increase or additional is supposed to come. If they, like the town clerk doesn't have to come because the budget's the same every year. There's nothing else new in there. And some of the departments, recreation doesn't have to come because it's pretty much the same and went down.
We had several capital projects this year that we funded through the loan that we got, but we didn't do.
Yeah.
Now, we're proposing that they're going to be done next year, but a couple of them have to go out for RFPs again.
Yeah, in
correct?
February.
What happens if the RFPs are still high? What do we do then?
We'll have to revamp what we're going to do.
Do we take the money and go on vacation?
Well, you won't be able to.
What, would we have the option, like say we've got the pointing on the building and everything and then the walkway out back. Say they both come out just super high, but if we combine the money from the walkway with the building, we'd be able to do the building.
We're able to do
Do we
that.
have that option
Yes,
to say, okay, we're just gonna take care of this?
We would have to do either a resolution or order, but yes, we can do that. Yes. yes, you always have that option. As long as these are the projects that originally were out, or they're close to those projects. We couldn't, for example, go down and pave a parking lot or something.
Right,
They have to
right.
be these projects. And then if they keep coming in super high, we can reallocate the money to something else. You just have to go through like an ordinance process.
I'm just thinking, we need to make some progress here on getting the
Yeah.
project cleaned up and done,
Yes.
and if that's, one avenue to be able to say, okay, this is completed, and then we can look at another project, and maybe not doing the extensive walkway plan of the heated this and that and everything, and just, if the bricks are a problem, the Public Works can just tear those out anytime and put a gravel walkway in. That might be a quick and easy solution.
Yeah, there would be a variety of those, yeah.
Yeah.
And I did speak
And the
with,
weeds and the.
yeah, and
Bushes.
after Steve came up to put the cones out, he said, well, if we have to, I'll just dig this up myself and do it, so.
Okay.
It will get done, it has to, they're all at different angles now.
Yeah, and also, I mean, not only the fact that it needed to be done, but I think you mentioned to us that it was pointed out by our insurance carrier that, it's a liability.
It's a liability because it's bricks.
Yeah.